Okay, hi. Today we will discuss about the factor of the living cost. First is minimum wages limit need to be raised with further to balance the rise of the price of the goods. Okay, moreover, this is happen when the employer not give or a job for the local people. That's because employee they prefer to use foreigner because to reduce the cost, like Vietnam, Indonesia, Bangladesh and Philippines. They never demand the wages and can give the more cheaper price, and then it's good for the company, but they never see others in the local people that finds the job in this economy, in this era. So the also those the alright. Let we continue with other factor of living costs. Number 2 is the rise of population in this country, means in Malaysia. Rise population in Malaysia is still small. The population in Malaysia are still small, rather than other country like China and India that have biggest population. Like China is 1.399 billion population, and India is 1.378 billion. So but China and India, we know that the country have wide area rather than Malaysia. Malaysia only have only 354,000 SQKM, and the population is about 15 million people only. This will create competitive condition in the marketplace and further improve the quality and production for export. Means the Malaysia have to be a export country like other country, like Singapore is about the Singapore, as we know, the country only small, but the economy also increase at this country rather than Malaysia. We can see about the currency, about Malaysia ringgit to dollar Singapore. It's really different economy. So Malaysia have to be a produce country to increase the economy in Malaysia. In the same time, the names of the name of country can well known to the other country. Right. One is can affect about the psychology, 2 is about social, and 3 unemployment. Okay, the first one is the psychology. The individual will feel the depressed face with this situation that will invite symptoms such as about their healthy, sleeping, example sleeping, loss of appetite, and hitches and so on. Okay, we move to other point is about the social implication of the living cost. The rising cost will living also affect social aspect. When the household income cannot cover the individual example, they have to force to look the part time or extra work to cover expenses enough. They can you see about the implication? See about this topic. They also tally about psycho and social. When you needs to workforce, they also affect your healthy, right? Okay, the last point is unemployment. In this era, workers in the private sector either or government sector is easy to get dismissed. Other is graduate student, also from college or university, is hard to find the job vacancy because the employee wants to reduce the cost of employee and also reduce operating costs. As the result, the individual who had to get source to find their own income. At the same time, they have to handle the economic of the global in this era too. Alright, thank you.
Okay, now I want to explain about housing development and policies in Malaysia. Housing policy currently involve a number of complex problems. Malaysia is a country with three basic racial and religious groups in a multicultural society. Due to the economic activity of these three different ethnic groups, the housing and residential pattern was noticeable. In order to eliminate this imbalance, the government has reached a solution by introducing a new economic policy, NEP. Generally speaking, there are two alternatives for the state to help its citizens in the provision of housing. One which allocates housing specifically to households unable to provide themselves on the general market, and the other to interrupt the operation of the general market to make it more likely to meet all household needs. Second, provision by public and private sector. In Malaysia, housing development and activities are subject to approval from higher authority from the relevant state and federal authorities except for individual or group housing. The public sector plays a role in providing adequate and meeting housing needs by allocating and providing public housing to smaller income groups and households. However, by relying solely on the public sector, it is difficult for the government to meet the higher demand for housing for Malaysian citizens. The government therefore needs the private sector to help them develop more housing for the public. Third is affordability issues. Affordability is always the main problem that most people who have not had the opportunity to buy their own house highlight. The affordability of a narrow concept can be also seen as related to household income, housing costs, availability of housing, employment, maintenance of the existing affordable housing stock, and new construction pattern. However, there were increasing problems among the middle income group which were not included in the government housing assistance. So they have to face two types of difficulties which involve high housing costs or high housing transport costs. Fourth is housing prices. According to Hashim 2010, housing pricing which continue to rise year after year is influenced by location, national income, capital cost, start prices, and change in population. Due to the geographical size and location of the states in Malaysia, housing prices are generally influenced by the region. Next, due to the difference between the economic disparity of each state, the price of the household and the household income will greatly influenced by level of affordability of housing. With the higher cost of housing, many of the low and medium incomes are forced to buy their house outside the city because they cannot afford to pay a high price in the urban region. As a consequence, they have to deal with other problems that they have to spend more on transports such as fuel or public transport because it was far from their workplace. And the last is insufficient housing allocation. Houses provided by the private sector were generally enough for the high income group. However, house allocation for the needy middle income group are still insufficient to meet the ever growing population high demand. The government has always placed the highest priority on providing the public with benefits in midst development rather than building affordable houses in the outskirts of the city. However, with the insufficient land of allocate to all the building by the developer, the need to build more houses for median income cannot be realized. Thus, this insufficient allocation of affordable housing for middle income households in the city can now be considered a major problem and must be resolved by the government to support and assist group in providing better access to spacious, comfortable, yet affordable household based on its income.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Abdul Rosli and my matric number is 2555767. That we know our research about cost living in Malaysia. So we decide to do more detail of living cost in Malaysia, which is we chose to study about house pricing in Malaysia. As we know, Malaysia have 32.4 million people live in this country, and to be a standard cost of living, we may take more action to increase the level of standard life in citizen. In my part is explaining the recommendation and conclude and to do conclusion of whole research. In what we so first recommendation is property development. Property development such as private sector must work with the state government to build more affordable low cost housing at strategic place, which is many people can purchase it with the lower price. From that we can improve cost of living in Malaysia and next to be a better country in the global.